Hi, and welcome to this virtual roundtable on how CFOs can drive innovation and agility in 2021, sponsored by Sage. Around our virtual roundtable, we've got 5 experts, including some CFOs, each of which have got their own unique take on the topics we'll be discussing. And we'll be talking about things such as how the finance function is changing under the influence of new technologies such as cloud, but also changing working relationships, which have been forced on everybody by the pandemic. We'll also be talking about how the CFO can contribute more broadly to innovation within the wider organization. We'll also be talking about the skills challenge, very important, not only within the finance function in terms of recruiting and retaining the talent, but also the CFO themselves. What are the things they need to learn? What are the things, additional skills they're going to be needed if they're going to sort of drive innovation and really step up to the plate in 2021? And at the end of it, I'm also going to be asking our 5 experts for a key takeaway, which is broadly applicable for any CFO over the coming year. I think I'm going to start off with quite a broad question, but quite a critical one, which is, given the uncertainty ahead of us, nobody really knows what the economy or even society is going to look like in 9, 6, maybe even 3 months' time. Is now the time for CFOs just to be hunkering down, looking at cash flow, or is there actual opportunities to be seized?
I think it's a time to double down. So I think given all the uncertainty in the world and the pace at which different countries are coming out of this, it would be quite easy to sit and wait. And I think actually, we're a communications firm in the technology space. I'm not going to pretend the crisis didn't affect us in some ways, but broadly, we're doubling down. We've just done a new 3-year plan, and we're pushing ahead with innovation and trying to identify those areas where we felt we had competitive advantage during the crisis, and also how our clients are affected. So one thing for us, we're seeing clients for the communication needs doubling down on the digital area. So, shift in strategy is meaning we are looking very hard at how we're positioned, and we've just done a new 3-year plan. And for us, it's pretty simple. We're doubling down and pushing ahead.
Well, what about your role? I mean, do you feel that in this uncertain environment that people are just wanting you to focus on the cash flow and the numbers and the basics? Or do you feel as a CFO that there are opportunities to expand, the way that your job works to help the business more?
Yeah, sorry, Glenn, on the finance side, I think we've come through 12 months where I feel the role of CFO, people were looking face in your expression to know that things were all right and that they weren't going to lose their job, or that, as one of the public faces of the company, or internally, I mean. So I think mostly in finance sense, we're pushing ahead with existing initiatives. So, we're big Salesforce user, for example, and we're pushing ahead with the development of that in our business. We're looking at our pricing. We're pushing ahead with all projects as if there had been no crisis. And for me, my team has been very resilient and come through this well. So I'm almost business as usual and I'm pushing a bit harder.
Yeah, who else wants to chip in on this?
Yeah, I'll chip in. I agree that if the organization has survived in this world of uncertainty so far, I think it's time to be brave, to innovate, because it's going to be key to stay competitive. So sometimes that even means rethinking the business model of an organization. And from my perspective, with some of our clients, we've seen that happening. Organizations need to be agile, make faster, better decisions while maintaining that business continuity, especially when working remotely, which is the new normal. So I think keeping up with the digital transformation on the back office side is extremely important. From the role of the CFO, and I'm not a CFO, but I speak with a lot of CFOs and finance departments almost every day. I see that they need to continue being very strategic for their organization, to support that business growth, that business efficiency. A big focus of their job is automating those processes to drive cost savings and drive time savings with the right technologies. So they're becoming more and more technical, almost to the point where they can architect almost a little bit the overall software solution of their organization. And that's why I think CFOs should not be afraid of those new ideas, making those decisions to champion a change in the organization and be in a position of of a leader versus a lagger. And I think the three pillars supporting that is a cloud transformation using those emerging technologies, along with more data, more real-time data for better decisions, and increased collaboration across the entire ecosystem. That's what I typically see.
So, Chad, you're a CFO. I mean, do you feel that there's pressure on you just to look at the basics, or do you think this is an opportunity for you in your role?
Yeah, I think, I typically think about the finance function sort of analogous to riding in a car. And typically, what's critical for elite finance functions is to really sit in the front passenger seat with our roadmap, with our forecast, and help the rest of the business, that is the driver, get to our destination, wherever that may be. So I think the critical things for us is what we've seen over the last 12 to 15 months has been, in this particular case, the car has come to a stop and we've had to get in the car and we've had to drive it. And that's presented a big opportunity for the finance function as a whole to really define ourselves, as Adrian and Laurent are speaking to, in terms of the value-added business partner and the opportunity that we have as a finance function. So I think for us, what I've seen within Salesloft, but then also within our customers and even our vendors, is really double down on some of the basics in terms of cash flow, how they go about contracting, payment terms, billing terms, along with the procurement side of the business too, how they go about buying stuff with an extra added degree of conscientiousness. But then as we look forward, even to Adrian's point, is it's critical for us as the finance function to really push our boundaries in terms of the edges and to really push the business as we move forward and consider such things as whether it's sales rep productivity from the B2B space, or how we think about enhancing our ROI in the marketing function by way of example. So it's doubling down on those basics, but then also continuing to push the business as we move forward.
So, I mean, Monica from Sage and Tim from PwC, you spend your days speaking to CFOs. I mean, what sort of things are they telling you in terms of their role changing?
So I can start with that. So look, most of our client base is small businesses. And what our mission as Sage is to get them onto the cloud, right? These are small businesses in the UK that are not used to that. So for us, this is actually really boosting what we're trying to do commercially across our business. And you'll be surprised, we thought when COVID hit that we would be adversely, severely impacted trading wise, and we weren't, because everybody needs this software. Everyone needs it to run their business, and especially on the cloud. So I think it's great that we're able to see people transforming and being more innovative and be able to go with the times. Do you see what I mean? And the other thing I just did want to say as well, look, this is the new norm now. And I think people need to stop referring as COVID or pre-COVID we were this and that. We need to be agile to that and adapt to that. I mean, personally, for me, I run the commercial finance team, so I'm very closely working with the business leaders, etc. We haven't stopped anything. We are full flow, going ahead, as some of the other people on the call have said, doing our 3-year plans, doing our forecast, doing our external results. Nothing is impacted. And we're continuing to innovate and develop our finance function to do what we had in our plans originally. So for us, yeah, of course, you have a little bit of an impact, but it's not as drastic as one would expect.
And funny, I think to back that up, we did a survey a few months ago about actually the impact of COVID, and specifically on private businesses, was the audience that we went out to. And the question of a similar nature was actually, are you thinking you should go out? Should you be brave? Should you double down? What idea should you batten down the hatches? And actually, a lot of businesses came back and said it wasn't so much being brave as actually it became essential to pivot the business. And to pivot the business in the direction of whatever demand was at that point in time. And that's been a key bit actually where the CFO has been stepping in to say, well, actually, okay, what does that look like? What does it do to the procurement elements of when we're looking at that? What's that initiative? What does doubling down mean in a certain direction? And a fantastic example where I was speaking to a business owner who sold the little bottles of shampoo that you get in boutique hotels, those little kind of fancy bottles. Of course, there's an industry that didn't need many shampoo bottles over the last kind of COVID bit. And actually, there was a sudden change of business where they came and said, well, actually, could you make little things of hand sanitizer for us? Is that an option? And it was then back to the drawing table and saying, okay, how do you do that? We think we have the equipment. Where do we source the components from? And actually, can we very quickly pivot the business? That's now been a huge success for them because, of course, the hand sanitizer requirement has absolutely exploded. And for that business, being able to pivot with the right information to hand has actually allowed them to nearly double the size of their business during COVID. And I think from a brave point as well, the pandemic and the situation we find ourselves in hasn't been the same as the financial crisis was. Okay, there's still access to borrowing. Banks are willing to lend. Private equity are terribly excited to come in with an investment and support. And actually, if you're in a tech sector, then actually valuations are very high at the minute. And if anything, this promotes even more of an opportunity to double down and to go big into what was the strategic direction. But I think we found that being able to provide the numbers to guide the business to double down and pivot in the right direction is where we've seen real success.
Yeah, and that's an important point, right? Because none of us really know what the economic environment or social environment is going to be in even sort of 3 months, never mind by the end of 2021. And any business that's pivoting needs new KPIs. It needs a whole new sort of suite of metrics and dashboards and things like that. And, I think if you've got a, traditional accounting system, this is really quite a challenge.
Massively so. Yeah, I think for everybody here who's involved with those challenges, and if anything, COVID has really brought those weaknesses out and very, very loud. Anything in terms of traditional manual processes, systems that you couldn't access remotely, has had a massive impact on businesses. And the experiences that we've heard and the nightmare scenarios of people just not being able to get to their data and being able to get to the spreadsheets where those numbers were hidden has been hugely painful. And that's highlighted to people actually saying, well, listen, if we haven't done anything in terms of our transformation agenda, if we haven't done the simple things like get on the cloud, then there's been a big regret there that we should have done that sooner. But my goodness, let's step up and do it now. And we've seen that agenda come to the forefront. And whilst many of us on the call here have probably talked about the digital transformation agenda for years, and that's the industry working, my goodness, did it come to light that if you'd done it, you were in a much, much stronger pace than some of the competition found themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the big things that we've seen the last, 12 to 15 months has really been the opportunity that's been presented to us as finance leaders, just in terms of allowing us to reassess the business. And then as you think about that on a tactical and an actionable level, it's really forced us really from a data perspective, as we've all sort of touched on and alluded to. What's critical for us is as we reassess the business is be able to access that data that contains the multiple attributes for us to, for example, instead of looking at the business on a pure segment basis, like, for example, customers we're selling into, let's also layer in a geographic basis. Who are the verticals we're selling to? And being able to sort of peel back that onion to look at the data and be able to assess the business to help drive better decisions based upon the data that we have. And it's very critical based upon where we are, but then also as we move forward and the questions that we're trying to solve right now and problems that we're trying to solve are going to be critical, particularly as we continue to move forward. And this has done nothing but present the opportunity for us to do this.
From my experience and from a technology standpoint, in 2020 we've seen a lot of of our prospects coming to the realization that, oh man, we've been doing AP automation like that for 20 years and it was not broken, but all of a sudden that's not working anymore. And like you said, they still have paper flowing through the organization. They don't have that data because the paper is stacked up somewhere and no one can go to the office. So we've seen, along the lines of what Monica was saying earlier, we've seen actually quite a boom and quite an interest from our standpoint in automating AP to streamline, automate all that process and capture the data more efficiently, and then have the data at our fingertips. So a lot of interest has risen from that uncertainty in 2020, and in general, I think technologies that will support the needs there are going to revolve around artificial intelligence, machine learning, some predictive analysis, data visualization tools to really capture and understand that data, and I think smart technologies that work in real time are the way to go moving forward. And as an example, I had a prospective clients in March that came to us knocking on our door and said, well, we've automated AP, but our vendor is outsourcing. And guess what? During the confinement, the outsourced company who was processing their AP could not go to the office, and they ended up with 45 days of invoices not being paid. Thousands of invoices being 45 days late. And they realized, man, I need technology supporting my AP process. I need real-time automation and to have that data at my fingertips and not have that kind of problem. So I think there has been a big wake-up call, a big aha moment in 2020 for a lot of companies.
If I was just to add to this digital transformation point, as Laurent and others have said, it is key for finance to lead the front here. Like, wouldn't it be great if month end and forecast just wasn't even a process, right? So that we can just focus on that commercial insight. And that is what I'm really trying to drive here at Sage and in my commercial finance function. It's all about the insight. Yeah, we can report the numbers, but what does that actually mean? What do I need to do? What management actions do I need to go and drive? And as we're moving to this SaaS transformation, really getting into this predictive analytics, being able to plan for the future, like we all do 3-year plans, etc. I know we probably do it off systems, etc. But we're not there in that sophistication to make longer term decisions now. And that's what I'm trying to do, move to that forward thinking rather than sort of all about the past.
Yeah, I mean, it's a change of perspective, right? Because particularly in a fast-moving business environment, what happened 3 months ago, I mean, it's quite interesting. Obviously you need it for statutory and tax, but that's not what the business is wanting to know, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's amazing. I mean, I'd echo what everybody else said, but it's amazing what I've learned around suppliers, for example. Our bank recently, who'll remain nameless, posted us card readers to an empty office. The Inland Revenue has been posting us here in the UK, the tax authorities posting us letter, and organisations, other ones adapted more quickly. And it's been quite interesting to see how different suppliers to Hotwire, it's shown the resilience or the recovery or their ability to flex, and has given me a different perspective on, how good they are at perhaps in a way that you wouldn't have seen before, if that makes sense.
I think, I mean, if looking at the sort of range of technologies that a modern platform supports, obviously the ability to work from anywhere is now just a sort of an entry ticket. But I mean, Laurent, you mentioned, prediction and analysis. I mean, are you feeling that there's a lot more demand for this type of functionality? Is this the most important new thing?
I think this is one of them. Like you said, working from home is the entry ticket, but besides working from home, there is the ability, before being able to do predictive analysis on the data, to capture the data automatically and in an efficient way. So I think two kind of technologies, at least from my standpoint, from the space I know, it's how do we capture all that data when it comes to the purchasing invoices, etc. And then how do we put that into a tool that will do that predictive analysis? So I think there are two things moving forward. That are the data capture, processing, for example, AP automatically, and then being able to have those data analysis tools in real time on top of that.
And I must admit, Lauren, I think this is something you'll probably see as much of as we do in the market, but it would be nice to see that, businesses were at a point where we already had the underlying architecture in place and actually had automated some of the data capture and processes around it to be able to drive forward with predictive analytics and some of the much sexier and clever reporting. But actually, still as we look across the clients that I'm engaging with day and daily, there's still a bit to getting the basics right. And actually saying, okay, so what does the underlying architecture look like here? The amount of businesses that still haven't adopted the cloud. And for us who working in the industry, find that astonishing because we've been there, we've seen the benefits that it brings. And I think if you find yourself engaging with somebody who's going out in this brave new world to actually price a server to put in the corner of their office, they need to have a long, hard look at themselves and actually say, why are we not making the most of the technologies together? And I think that getting that foundation between getting the right systems, getting them onto the cloud, and of course, taking advantages of the benefits of the things like integration. And we can talk about different point technologies. And I must admit, AP automation is one that we speak to clients who actually aren't on their journey yet. But my goodness, when they're on their journey, that kind of technology is no brainer because that is taking away from manual processing. That actually the robots are already here and are already doing for us. And I think that, kind of probably that term can bring a bit of fear to some businesses. And with actually saying the robots are coming in, we're going to automate all these activities. The computer will do it all for you. But for us, that's a fantastic opportunity, which is to get all of the manual repetitive activities automated, systemized, get that done for you and actually focus your team, your resource, your staff, your business on value adding activities. Let's look at the data. What's telling? Let's enhance the reporting capabilities we've got. And a fantastic line somebody where said, listen, look at automation here as the end of boring. All right. Those repetitive manual activities that happen all day, every day that people are doing, get rid of it. The computer's better at than we are. Let them do that piece and let us go off and analyze the data that we're seeing, what's happening in the market and how can we pivot our business to respond to that.
So what you're saying is I don't take your existing process and just think, okay, we can move them to the cloud and things like that. This should be an opportunity for a step back.
Completely. And if anything, actually, that's probably the biggest role that the CFO can take in this position. Because as a general rule, we talk about finance transformations, all right? It's broader than that, okay? But it's being led by finance because the CFOs find themselves enabled and best placed to help drive the change. And part of that change actually is a challenge to those processes. And I worked with a company actually earlier on this week when we were talking about the existing process landscape that they have and saying, how will we automate this process? I says, well, for that particular process, what are you doing differently in your organization that's giving you a competitive advantage in how you process invoices? I personally can't think of something in a non-client facing back office kind of role that would be getting to it. And indeed, actually on another process, why are you doing that? Why are you actually doing that activity at all? I believe that the other controls we have make that entire process redundant. And we were able to look at the process landscape and say, actually, you don't need to do that anymore. And if we just stop that one thing, you seem to have got a day and a half of time back, a month. My goodness, what could you do with that?
And I think a lot of it has to do with, Tim, what you're speaking of is sort of like a mindset shift in terms of, the leaders in finance and leaders across the business. And that mindset shift is, we're not solving for today's problem. We've got to invest today to solve for the problems that we want fixed now, but also the problems that we want fixed 2 or 3 years from now. So if we're a $100 million company today, we don't want to create the framework for the $100 million company. We want to create the solution for the $500 million company. And sometimes on the, especially us finance folks, we can kind of get wrapped into sunk costs or what we've done before, or we had previously invested a lot of time doing one thing or another. But if that's not optimal as we move forward, then our future selves will be regretting that we didn't do it now.
And do you, Salesloft is a fast growing company. Do you find that everybody understands that when you say we need to be solving not today's problems, but the problems that we actually hope to have in 2 years because we're going to be so much bigger? People understand that?
I think it's you've got to lay the framework and you've got to sort of, it is really an internal culture. It's an internal culture. It's a mindset. And it's sort of an infinite game that we're playing, a very long-term game that we're playing to look to really scale the business, get the investments. And of course, like the investment, there's going to be the upfront cost just in terms of time, system implementation, and all that sort of stuff. But then what's critical along the way, even from a people standpoint, is to really celebrate those small wins and then engage the rest of the business as we look to become better and more valuable business partners as we all move forward. Because it's not necessarily a finance problem that we're always solving. It's usually the finance is sort of the last one in the process. It's really an overall business problem. So it's critical to really engage the rest of the business as well.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think you're right about the sort of the interaction with the rest of the business. I think there is a problem that a lot of finance departments are regarded as the department of no, as opposed to being a partner and helping drive the business forward. I mean, does anybody have any ideas about how to change this, or does it require a cultural change?
Probably got a few on that, Gren. I mean, I think I quite like the department of no thing, and I think I've focused quite a lot on the human side. So, Hotwire, we're a people business. We are selling our people every day to clients, and I have found I've always focused on my team having the technical skills to be good accountants, but also the communication skills to work with people who are professional communicators. And I've personally embarked upon speaking to every single employee in the company for 5 minutes, just at a human level, over the last 3 months, and replicating that contact points that you're missing by not being in the office, and finding that, people just have back-to-back work Zoom calls. And to break I tried to replicate the bumping into people in the kitchen or the coffee machine, because that's where I find out the client hasn't signed a contract. I say to somebody, do you know this client hasn't paid a debt? I pick up on something, and I think the encouraging my team to do that, the intelligence I get from that kind of human activity, I think has been put in a premium. But I've also found my team has become closer. I don't know what anybody else thinks. My team is much closer over the last year, and we're also reporting more intimate relationships with our clients, if I define the word intimate in the most respectable way. Just because you're talking to people like today in their bedrooms, in their libraries. I don't have intelligent books behind me like you, Graham, but there's a more intimate relationship in this, and people have to make that effort to take advantage of that, almost for the advantage of your team and your company, because it is a different dynamic.
Monica, I saw when Adrian was talking about the virtual team, you were grinning. I mean, this is clearly, what were your thoughts there?
So look, not to repeat what's just said, I just think it's just so important to keep in touch with everyone. In my role, I head up commercial finance, but I work very closely with the business. So in both sides of my job, I make the point, similar to what has just been said, about having that one-on-one time, team time, the coffee chat, if you like, do you know what I mean? To make sure that relationship still exists. I do like this finance are regarded as department of no. I really actually like that. I've not actually heard that too much before, but we have this constant joke, oh God, got to go and ask Monica for this, go and ask Monica for that. But it's good, right? At least people are aware that we've got this financial control and discipline, and they know that there's this governance that we have to go through, that the finance function kind of foster and embed across the organization, right? It's pretty critical, and especially in times like this, where everyone is managing their cost base, their cash flow, just don't know what tomorrow holds with the government funding, etc., sort of falling away, etc. So, I take it as quite a positive from that respect.
And I think, the stereotype is that finance is the department of no. And I think what's critical, couldn't be more critical in these particular times, but also in the high growth environment, and we're all continuing to see and pushing for more growth. And that is the mentality of no, but, or not yet, but. And what's critical along those lines is ensuring that throughout the business, we build that internal decision-making framework. So it might not be us saying no, or it might not be us saying no, not yet. The business can then provide that. And then over time, we can instill sort of that behavior in the decision-making framework and mentality to say, okay, here's what has to happen in order for this to be true, and then working with them to understand those particular trade-offs.
But I mean, it's a personal challenge, isn't it? Because first of all, nobody wants to work for a department of no, but also nobody wants to work for a company where you're just basically sitting in front of your laptop with back-to-back Zoom calls all the time with no interaction with your peers and your boss, right? And you know, although technology is extremely important, the fact is you need people, and you need super talented, even more talented people now than you did 12 months ago.
From my standpoint, to piggy off on all that's been said here, we try to help, you know, CFOs and finance departments, you know, fight a little bit that no, I guess, and try to help them, you know, build a business case. In our case, regarding AP automation, because that's something that can be started very easily, very quickly, and deliver benefits, especially around, you know, the team and the morale of the staff. Because if it's, you know, simple and easy to use, you're going to have a quick adoption. This will boost employee commitment. This will boost motivation, because they all spend less time on those tedious tasks, and they will have more time for, you know, added value. So they'll see, you know, the finance department will see high cost savings, and it switches the reputation of the finance department. You know, it's less of a back office function that is just, you know, a cost center, and it's switching to something that has more value, that you know, almost like a profit center. It might not be generating real cash, but it will be seen as more value. And of course, you'll have, you know, all the benefits associated to, you know, better control and management of your process on who does what, and all that collaboration aspect that you will find in solutions today, in cloud-based solutions, that will facilitate all that teamwork and that visibility. So I think it's key for CFOs when they build a business case to have those benefits in mind, and also to look for something that, you know, solutions in general that can be deployed rapidly, that will generate strong benefits quickly for their teams, in order to try to fight that no. And you know, there is a lot of solutions today that really do something very well and that will easily integrate to your ERP. So back to the earlier discussion about the overall architecture, it's easy now to build something that will provide the best for each process, and you can just tie all that up with integrations into your overall ecosystem. So I think that's something we see a lot on our side of things with AP automation.
You touched on good points there, and actually the no position, and actually some of the activities that can be traditionally seen in the finance function. We need to change that too. And because that's taking us to a position of actually where who wants to be a CFO, who wants to work in this function, how are we going to attract, and how importantly are we going to retain top talent? And some of the traditional views of a finance function and stuffy, you know, terrible manual processes, long hours of doing repetitive tasks, will not attract, and it sure as heck won't retain the top talent. And that's what we're doing as part of this exercise as well. And some of the kind of the benefits you guys are very much down to that. If we don't make a change here, we will not be able to hold on to the good people we've got. Never mind actually getting more good people into the business. And we need to fix that position now. And I think there's endless articles out there. If we look at the bright talent coming through in terms of millennials, etc., you know, they won't do the things that, dare I say, everybody in this call has probably done in a finance team in terms of the processing of invoices and terribly long reconciliations and 37 spreadsheets later. They're not going to do that anymore. All right. So now we have the opportunity to fix that and hold on to those really good people.
I think on the finance function and the talent point, yeah, everyone's 100% right. We need to get the right talent, etc. For me, there's also a thing about resilience. I think what people in other functions don't tend to realize, and this is no disrespect to any other function, finance is continuous, right? There's never a quiet moment. You're either doing a month end, you're doing a forecast, you're doing a plan, you're doing a board, or you name it, we're doing it, right? And it's just so important that the people you have in your team are people that can stand up to that, right? And then they don't flake under the times of pressure and stuff. And look, we acknowledge it's just so hard with this remote working, etc. It's been coming up to a year. So we're doing a lot around well-being. is just so important for our teams, for our colleagues, making sure that we're giving them time back, doing things together, family things, etc., etc. Look, there might be a day that someone's working till 10 o'clock at night, but then they take the next day off, right? We're trying to bring in that type of informality into the norm of our sort of daily working life. And I think, referring back to the COVID and things, that is one thing that's going to change the ways of working and what the future looks like for the finance function. Like I've always been quite a traditional finance leader. I want my core team with me in the office in London, but it doesn't matter. We have achieved so much in the last year with us all sitting in our houses. What does that matter now, right? So much opportunity ahead of us.
I'm probably stepping on that because, I'm not going to gloat, but Hotwire, to a few things. We were completely in the cloud, to Tim's point at the start of this. We've been using Slack and Zoom for 4 years. So when we were seeing tweets from businesses that were struggling, we weren't gloating, but we thought, God, thank God we're not there with our servers stuck in an office somewhere. And to Monica's point on the resilience, I have seen we were already pretty good at this, and we've done all the pub quizzes and everything else that people have done. But one of the things I've seen is we had offices in every country in the world virtually. So I remember a year ago, Italy was 8 weeks ahead of France, and as they've gone through, they've all been on a roller coaster. And, my team, we also had a thoughtful working policy. So even 4 years ago, you could work as if, a thing you did, not a place you went. And we've allowed people to work wherever they were most effective. And it, it did come from the West Coast USA, from my CEO. But, the logic being, if you trust somebody sitting next to you, you should trust them when they're at home. And that's given us great agility. And our workforce is quite distributed. Now, my team in the last 3 months, I've been working from Jordan, Madrid, all over the place. We've had employees join us. I talked to one who's in Hawaii. She's not meant to be there, but she's doing the job. And people we recruited in the Middle East are turning up in Italy. And it has made no difference to our business at all. I think the main thing right now is how tired people are. And there's only so many pub quizzes and initiatives and stuff you can pump out. But I've seen people put blinkers on in the last few months and stop engaging on platforms, and they're just trying to survive. And I think that is a unique feature of the next while. And we're asking our teams to innovate at a time when they're just trying to survive is quite an interesting backdrop. To Tim's point, if you want to try and push out a major initiative, you just got to be sensitive to the fact that, and I've been talking to a lot of our employees, they're all sitting in bedrooms. They've all moved back with their parents. People are in every single person has been in a different position. And to really focus on what you're trying to roll out, you've got to sell in the benefits as well and be conscious of where they are. And that's just a personal viewpoint from Hotwire's experience.
But this is, on top of all of this, of course, you have the issue, which is that the role of the finance department is changing. This would be difficult in a steady state, but if you're becoming more strategic and introducing new systems, this is quite an additional load, right?
Yeah, but I think it's benefit. I'll just finish that. Handy. I think it's benefits too, Gwen. I think to Tim's point, the forcing people has allowed things to change much more quickly because they've had to. So I think people have now thought, hang on a second, in the past I would say no to this innovation, but no, let's give it a chance. And to Chad's point on the whole business, one of the factors I've found has changed is everybody is an expert in systems now. Everybody's got an idea of, 20 years ago, the finance tell us about a new system. Everybody's got an idea now. Everybody's got the best one. Everything comes on subscription. And so you've got far more stakeholders too. But I think that helps because you can, like to Chad's point, bring them with you in terms of innovation. And so, Gwen, I think it creates a different environment. But in fact, it is one conducive to change because people have been through so much without choice that they're now thinking, hang on a second, you can go more quickly if you want to.
And Adrian, that bringing people with you point, I think, is utterly important here. And we talk about the changes in the business and what technologies bring to the table and the digital transformation. And we've got to be mindful, actually, that not everybody has the same starting point on that digital journey. And we want to make sure that we're moving as a collective together, not only for just the best benefits of the business and the outcome, everything come with it, but actually to look after the team. And we can look, and we all have examples in our own teams of look at somebody who hasn't been as technologically enabled and advanced as some of their other colleagues have been. but actually the knowledge that they have of the business, their understanding of the market is worth so much more than whether or not they can work in that landscape, that we need to make sure that we are moving as a collective and upskilling, reskilling, training everybody as we need to make sure that actually we get to a level playing field. And actually that's not the stopping point here. That's not the end goal, because technology continues to change. It continues to develop and bring more and more benefits with it in terms of automation and enhanced reporting and everything else that we can do with it. And whilst we're saying this is a transformation now to get on to like a digital agenda and get for that, actually the bit is to catch up and stay there. Continue to take benefits that the cloud and the new programs give us. Continue to have new systems talking to each other and get to the new technology, but make sure that we're bringing all of our people with us on that journey.
I mean, you're talking here about upskilling the team, but what about the head of the team? I mean, for those of you who are CFOs, for those who everybody else is talking to CFOs, what are the new skills that the top of the team needs to now have?
I think for me, it's agility, right? I've probably learned to be a little bit more agile, you know, being faced in this situation. Do you know what I mean? Like when you're in the office, you just take things for granted. People are there. Like, whereas now you think twice before you contact someone, or, you know, is it a bit late, or do you know what I mean? So taking that step back, being a bit more agile. And what I found is that I've been more thoughtful of how other people might think or feel, whereas in the office, it's kind of a little bit taken for granted. So yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to lie. It's been tough. It's been a tough year in terms of what I've personally had to do as a result of COVID and react to the board, the external market, etc. But that's what we're there for, right? And if we're not up for it, then our teams aren't going to be up for it. So therefore, my point of resilience, right? But yeah, look, we can lead by example, and we have a really important part to play in running a business. A business can't be run without finance and a good high quality function, right? So therefore it's just super important that we get that right.
Absolutely. And I think really three things I would say that has probably changed or probably been highlighted that is being demanded of the finance leader. One is, I think we're taking probably a new look and a new appreciation for what were our blind spots as finance leaders, and maybe those things that we missed in the past. As we move forward, how we're going to shore up those gaps or highlight those particular areas. So one, I think the opportunity. The second thing is just overall resilience, and I would say resilience in terms of the leadership resilience in terms of the people. And then on the people side, it's really, you know, having that heart-to-heart connection with our people in this virtual environment, because we all know that it's ultimately our people that really run our business and that make the business. And it's in that heart-to-heart connection could not be more important than it is now. Now, one thing that has not changed that we've all alluded to is the fact that, you know, one common sustainable attribute of successful finance organizations are their ability to make the news rather than be those functions that just report on the news. And that will continue to be consistent. But then the question for us is then, how do we go about doing that?
Adrian, do you feel that, you know, what sort of things do you, I mean, you've already mentioned the fact about increased sort of personal communication. I mean, how else do you feel that you've had to expand or change the way that you operate?
Yeah, I think I should be working in public relations, but when he gets out of the car where he's navigating, but I think for me, I mean, my CEO calls me the human CFO, and just out of the other things I do to be seen as human, approachable, which I help me do my job. So, you know, I've formed a band within Hotwire, a global band, and whenever we get together again, we'll play. But the last 12 months has been a focus on replacing how I do the job if I was in the office. So to Monica's point, far more one-to-one contact, far more random contact. So phoning people randomly has given me, I just go on Zoom or Slack and see who's green and just phone them. And they go, oh, hello, I don't expect to get a call from you. And being a bit more random because everything else is structured, understanding people's perspectives. So I think, I think it is really, everybody's journey in the last while has been very personal for multiple reasons. We never had something where your job is really stressed, your parents might be unwell, your kids are playing with 3 laptops and just lost a dog today as well. So that's never people so stressed. I think we've learned a lot about our teams. So I think we've learned a lot about the strengths we have, which people are resilient, to Monica's point, who are the people who've adapted and who are the people that continue to change. But I think as the leader, Gren, I think the one thing I'd say is never has the, premium on through this. The CFO was the one with the numbers, So, I've been very conscious of my communications. When people look at me, am I looking calm or am I looking scared? People have never wanted more reassurance from a leadership team and more communication. We've been doing short videos, day in the life of each board member, which we've been pumping out once a week. We have tried everything we can to share as a leadership team that we are completely confident where our business are. We're cool with the numbers, that premium on communication, which doesn't come naturally to the Department of No. And I quite like the Chad making the news, and I'd make the news in a softer way too, as well as the rollout of the system. Hello, I'm here, I'm the CFO and I'm a human and I understand where you are. And yes, we're going to still pay your expenses. And yes, here's a quicker way to do it. And that's my sort of personal views on it.
Yeah, I think you should have a baseball cap made with "I am the human CFO." That's a great line. So Tim of PwC and Laurent of Yooz, I mean, you both speak to CFOs and senior finance people all the time. And do you perceive, how have they stepped up? What sort of additional skills have they had to take on?
Yeah, and I think if you had to put one word, it would be the leadership position here. And I mean, Adrian, leading a team remotely, feels much more challenging than leading everybody. We're in the same room, in the same building from 9 to 5 every day. There's a different skill set and one of the agility point to actually be able to do that piece. And I think we actually move to rely upon the technology to deliver us the numbers and do the sums. And let's think about the technical accounting behind it. But there's a lot of that the box now does for us. It does change that position to being a leader for the team, yes, but actually to being a leader in the business, to being a leader in the boardroom, to actually be bringing that valuable content, information and numbers that come behind and support any kind of a decision to do or not do something, and being able to communicate that in such a way that gets people on side. That, I think, has been a big journey for a lot of CFOs we're engaging with, to step up to leadership, and dare I say it, being able to flex your communication style to whatever the environment is that you're currently experiencing.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and I would add, and from my perspective in the AP automation space, that it's laying the why, laying the framework to explain to your team, hey, why are we going to automate this process, AP or other things in the business, to make them feel that we're not doing that because we want to cut resources, but because this is a real supporting a real strategy to bring more value to the business by creating a good team environment, a good atmosphere where we can remove those tedious tasks, bring some automation on the repetitive stuff, and actually, because everyone is working from home, make them feel more empowered and part of bigger discussions, bigger value added tasks, I think.
Okay, and I'm very aware that sort of time is moving on, and we want to keep this to around about 50 minutes. So as a sort of a closing question to all of you, I'd like all of you to sort of answer this one really quite difficult question, and which is, what is the single most important thing that CFOs need to keep in mind to stay agile and innovative in 2021? What is the single most thing that CFOs need to keep in their mind? Go on, who wants to go first?
Go first. So for me, it's very simple, and without sounding like a broken record, it's all about wanting to become CFO 3.0. right? We want to be visionary finance leaders. We are no longer the historian accountant, right? For me, it's all about getting all the core just done with AI, digital transformation, etc., and really focusing on predictive analytics and becoming that strategic finance business partner to drive the business forward. So very simple.
And to add to that, from my perspective, I agree, and I would add simplicity. Simplicity as a key component, because this is going to mean fast user adoption, fast implementation with less resistance to change. It's a critical pillar to be agile and innovative. And from a software standpoint, it doesn't mean that the software cannot have all those technologies that are complex under the hood to give you that automation that you need, and have all those advanced technologies, and they should. But the level, the thing that the users are going to be playing with every day should be simple, quick to implement, easy to use, zero risk for the organization, to have that buy-in, which, as we talked earlier, is kind of a new hat that the CFO has to wear to build that team buy-in, that team adoption. So simplicity would be my conclusion.
I think really two things. One is process and innovation, in terms of you're not just solving today's problem. You're gonna thank yourself 2 years from now for having solved a $5 million problem, $500 million problem, as opposed to the $100 million problem. Then I think the second thing is really on the people side and people development, in terms of we don't have finance professionals that work for us. We don't have accountants that work for us. We have business people that just happen to be accountants and finance professionals. I'd say those two things under that common theme.
And I think there's a bit on the back of the question here, which is to be agile and innovative. And that comes down to being able to make better informed decisions, and to make them in a timely manner on robust information. And if you're struggling to get access to the information you need to make those decisions, and if you haven't started on a transformation journey to make all of that stuff very, very easy, then you need to do it now. And at least take the tactical steps as part of a longer strategic, but we've many conversations with clients who can think about a point journey, and I'll say taking you from 100 to 105 million, that kind of a bit here. There's tactical bits you're looking at, and tactical might be essential for right now, and we need something in a hurry. I get that, okay? But actually always being mindful of the strategic journey, all right? We're still here, and there's some activities to get us here, but actually let's at least start on that journey now. And we might not have all the answers, we might not have the entire plan, but we have a vision for where we want to get to. And let's keep continuing on that journey, and doing that together.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with the brilliant analysis by everybody else. I think for me, the next 12 months is a period of flux. So I believe a lot of people will, if this emerges and the sun rises and the world gets better, we'll move house, we'll get married, we'll do stuff. And I think we're going to have a lot of flux. We're going to have a lot of people moving, making changes in teams, in businesses. And so I think that will change the business we're managing. I think it will also change, we've got to be really mindful of keeping our high performers. So as leaders, we've really got to think that people's parameters have changed. And so, I've already got 2 team members moving to the other side of the world, and I'm doing my best to hang on to them. That premium on the human thing, I'll come back to it with my baseball cap, my virtual baseball cap. That concentration as a CFO on the human part, particularly as we automate and Tim's robots appear, will be absolutely crucial for leadership, and not only in the next 12 months, but I think in the future, because everything's changing, and all we can come back to is our leadership skills and understand people as humans and what will help our businesses.
Well, that's a good positive note to end this virtual roundtable. We've been talking at length in the last 50 minutes about the benefits of a modern cloud-based platform. If you want to know more about Sage Intacct, you can go to sage.com/UK/Intacct, sage.com/UK/Intacct. I'd like to finish by thanking our 5 expert panelists: Monica Aurora from Sage, Tim Burns from PwC, Laurent Charpentier from Yooz, Adrian Talbot from Hotwire, and Chad Wonderling from Salesloft. But most of all, I'd like to thank you. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you found it useful.